You're muted. Is it recording?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, welcome to the State of the Island on Older Adult Employment. This is a collaborative event sponsored by Healthy Aging Martha's Vineyard and ASMV, Adult and Continuing Education of Martha's Vineyard, also Martha's Vineyard Chamber of Commerce and Elder Services of Cape Cod and the Islands. This evening is the first in a two-part series. The next one is next Wednesday, April 14th, with a different set of panelists and topics. It focuses on job and training opportunities for Vineyard residents that are older than 55. This is an important topic to explore and to raise awareness of the many resources that are available to our older adults on the island who are either currently employed or are unemployed or are seeking to change employment, as well as for our employment service agencies. We hope you leave tonight with a better understanding of the variety of opportunities and resources that are available to support you in your search for employment, as well as a sense of community and connection with fellow older adults. Tonight we have 4 panelists who will be sharing their expertise with us and their resources and advice and suggestions for older adults and the State of the Island employment. We have Cindy Trish. She is the Executive Director of Healthy Aging Martha's Vineyard. Laura Roskos is the Director of Senior Community Service Employment Program through Elder Services Cape Cod and the Islands. Susan Drevich Kelly, Program Director of 50 Plus Job Seekers, which is a program representing the MCOA Councils on Aging. And we have Deborah Bent, a Vocational Rehabilitation Counselor for the Cape and Islands Area Office for the Massachusetts Rehabilitation Commission. I'll be the moderator tonight. My name is Holly Bellabono and I'm with ASMV. Cindy, you're next, but it's skipping over your slide. So our first speaker is Cindy Trish with Healthy Aging, and she's going to share the results of their recent island-wide survey. Cindy, you want to take it over?
Certainly. Thank you so much for everyone for coming tonight. And this is a panel discussion. So as I speak, if you want to add any questions into the chat function, we can certainly include them as part of our conversation. But we thought it might be a good idea to start with a little bit of background information on the older adults on the island and how we're feeling about the island and how we're feeling about employment and who's employed, because the island is really quite different than the rest of the country in terms of our employment statistics. So I'll share a little bit with you now. We can go to the next slide, Holly. So many of you may have participated in the survey, and if you did, thank you very much. We had almost 2,500 respondents to the survey of our older adults, which was conducted in October to December. It's interesting to note that we have approximately 7,500 adults on the island who are over the age of 60. So this really represented a third of our older adult population. And we're delighted to say that we had a fabulous mix of ages participate, including 15 surveys completed by island residents over the age of 95. And we also found that the vast majority of people who completed the survey, 90% in excess, identified as a permanent, saw themselves as a permanent resident, with 75% of our older adults living here on the island for 12 months in 2019. So we can go to the next slide. Just a little bit more about our participants, who are really a reflection more broadly of our island older adults. Almost 2/3 of the participants reported a household income of less than $100,000 a year, and we had slightly more female participants, which is in line with our island statistics as well as national statistics, and 12% of the individuals who participated were veterans. Our race and ethnicity mix was in line with our known population statistics for the island, with less than 1% identified as Brazilian. So gives you kind of a sense of who participated. What's interesting, before we get into the employment stats in my 6 minutes, I did think it would be helpful to share how we as older adults feel about ourselves and how we feel about the island. And interestingly, 9 in 10 of our respondents indicated that they felt that their overall either mental, oral, and physical health was excellent or good when compared to people, most people your age. So we see ourselves as vital and as healthy, although we were the first to admit mobility issues, with 20% indicating some form of a mobility issue, similar stats for hearing and high eyesight issues. And of course, some of these issues increase with age. Interesting enough, in our 2015 survey, we had asked our older adults to respond to a statement. The Vineyard community values the opinions and thoughts of our older adults, as well as the Vineyard is a great place for people to live as they are aging. And in both cases, we found the data to be the responses to be almost identical to 5 years ago, with a very a majority either selecting strongly agree or somewhat agree with those statements. We can go to the next slide. Now, this is not survey day, but I did just want to share at the national level, we see that the population of 65 plus is increasing, with 1 in 5 Americans will be over the age of 65 in 2030. I just mentioned that 1 in 3 of our island residents are over the age of 65 now. So we are much more a higher penetration of older adults on the island than national statistics. And nationally, we have 20% of the adults over age 65 or either working or looking for work in 2019, which is a significant increase since 1985. So there are more of us, and we are working longer. In terms of island statistics, our survey revealed that 35% of older adults are currently employed, and that's a mix of full-time and part-time. We see the part-time employment actually increases between the ages of 65 and 74 as some older adults move from full-time to part-time, and our data indicates that males are slightly more likely to be employed than females on the island. So here on the island, of those that are employed, that 35% of our older adults, 60% of those work for a Vineyard-based employer. Interestingly, as we age, we're more likely to work for an off-island employer, and oftentimes that's a family business that's located off-island. And our data indicates that those that are employed are more likely or will have a higher income. We don't see much difference in terms of employment levels across our towns, although our Black older adults are less likely to be working than other ethnicity. We asked the primary reason, or the most frequently mentioned reason for employment, is income, but we also see that cultural fit, social interaction, also are important reasons why our older adults work. Finally, for those of us seeking employment, which is what tonight's about almost 1% of our older adults report that they are seeking employment currently, although 10% are interested in learning more about how to equip themselves for when seeking a job. And finally, almost 3% expect to look for or participate in employment services going forward. It is interesting to note that our unemployment statistics have actually, indicated an upward trend, which is real. I don't think any real surprise to any of us as a result of COVID and many of the seasonal and part-time jobs declining on the island. So we see year over year almost a 12% or 11% unemployment rate in Dukes County in January of this year. And that's 4 points higher than a year ago. So I'll stop here and just turn it back over to you, Holly. But just to say that, we're as a community of older adults, we are excited about the opportunities for continuing employment and new employment opportunities if so desired by our community. Holly, you are muted.
Thank you. Can you hear me now? Okay. I forgot to mention for people in the audience, if you have questions, we are structuring this so that we have the 4 presentations first, and then the last half hour will be completely devoted to Q&A. So please have your questions ready. You can either type them into the chat box, which is at the bottom of your Zoom screen. And if there are a question to one of the panelists or to any of the panelists, type in a question mark at the beginning and then type your question. And then when we get to the Q&A, if you just raise your hand, we'll go through all the questions and work through everyone's needs. Our next speaker is Laura Roskos, the Director of Senior Community Service Employment Program through Elder Services Cape Cod and the Islands. Welcome, Laura.
Hi, it's really fun to see all of these people who are interested in this topic on the Vineyard. And I so appreciate Cindy's survey results, because it allows us to really pinpoint how many older job seekers there might be on the Vineyard and what it is they might be looking for. I really appreciate an opportunity to let people know about the Senior Community Service Employment Program operated locally by Elder Services of Cape Cod and the Islands. Although this program has been in existence for over 50 years, too few people even know it exists. And that's a shame, because for those older job seekers who face barriers to reemployment, it can be a lifeline and a game changer. Next slide, please. Initially conceived of as a poverty alleviation program for those who weren't eligible for Social Security, today it is a workforce training program focusing on identifying and strengthening transferable soft skills, building confidence and professional connections, deepening digital literacy, and transitioning to paid employment. The people who primarily make use of our program are people who have been unemployed for a while, sometimes due to a major life change, such as a relocation, an accident on the job, death in the family. Something has shifted for them. And so we really try to build on the experience and the intelligence and the knowledge that people have gained in their life before that happened, and see how that ties into the new work life that they want to build for themselves. I'm sorry, not quite yet. Back up. The Senior Community Service Employment Program, Csup for short, is really the only federal program tailored at reemploying low-income older adults. Our federal Csup grant enables Elder Services to pay our participants for online and on-the-job training at other local nonprofits and government agencies, so that when island residents have enrolled in the program, they will most likely be placed at island agencies unless they are working a remote assignment. Now the next slide. These assignments vary based on the competency and employment goals of individual participants. They offer an opportunity to gain relevant skills, to establish a track record of attendance and reliability, to build self-confidence, to refresh or create a professional network, all of which can help someone re-enter the workforce. While assignments such as these on the screen provide learning opportunities for program participants, they also reflect the real needs of the host organizations. People typically work in our program, typically work 20 hours a week at minimum wage while they train. They work in all sorts of different environments, doing a lot of front of the house, but also back of the house work with local nonprofits, many of which are involved in the arts and culture, some of which are involved with the environment and nature, some of which are involved with human services, and some of which are involved with aging services. Next slide, please. The assignments vary based on the competency and goals of participants. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. So the program works because it establishes a true partnership between the training placement site and the program participant. I think anyone who has looked for work in their 60s knows that age discrimination can be real. And finding yourself unemployed in later life can mean that you have a more difficult time finding your next job. If your livelihood has depended on muscle strength and stamina, sometimes you have no choice but to learn a different occupation. And sometimes we have to pivot because the job we love just doesn't exist anymore. So there's a shared purpose and a partnership between the hosting organization, elder services, and our Csup participants. We're all committed to building the participants' skills, but beyond that, we want to strengthen the local year-round economy so that everyone who wants to work can find work with purpose and fair compensation, regardless of their age. We older workers are the workforce our local communities need in order to thrive. Next slide. And so we are currently recruiting Csup participants in both Barnstable and Dukes counties. And if you think this might be a good program for you, you'd like to learn more, you're intrigued, please use my contact information on the screen to get in touch. And thanks for listening to this presentation.
Thank you, Laura. All right, we're going to move on to our next panelist. This is Susan Drevich Kelly. She's the program director for 50+ Job Seekers, which is a program representing the MCOA. Welcome, Susan.
Thank you very much, Holly, and thank you for inviting me to zoom into the island. So can you, first slide, please? So I'm really excited to be here today to tell all of you 50+ job seekers all about our wonderful program, the 50+ Job Seekers Networking Group. Next slide, please. So our mission with the 50+ Job Seekers Group program, which by the way is funded through the Executive Office of Elder Affairs, and our grantor is the Massachusetts Councils on Aging, and the program is provided totally free. Our mission really is to help the forgotten job seekers. And I know that very oftentimes I hear that people that are living on the Outer Cape and on the islands really do feel like they're forgotten job seekers. So who are you? Anyone that's 50+, living in Massachusetts and falls into one of these categories, as Laura mentioned, you know, people suddenly find themselves unemployed. They may be underemployed, unhappily employed. Could be somebody who's what we call a gapper, somebody who's returning to the workforce after being out for quite a while. Some people are just trying to cobble together a few different gigs and sort of tired of that and wanting, you know, something more permanent. And there are a number of people that participate that are what we call the retired butts. And those are the people that discover that maybe they can't afford to be retired, or that golfing and gardening just isn't giving them meaning and purpose anymore. So all are welcome. Why did we start the program? There are a few facts that you really need to understand, which is what drove me to create this program about 7 years ago. Ageism, as Laura mentioned, is very much alive and well. It's an ism, one of the 7 isms that's protected by federal and state law, but unfortunately it still very much exists. And we consider it to be the silent enemy of the 50+ job seeker. Second of all, 90%, and probably since COVID, it's closer to 95% of all jobs are found through networking. That is a fact. And the other fact is that LinkedIn is the most powerful networking tool that's available to you, and it's free. But unfortunately, the vast majority of job seekers that are in the 50+ demographic don't network because they don't feel comfortable with it, they don't know how to, and they don't use LinkedIn. They think it's a grown-up's Facebook page, and it's not. And so that's a big part of what we do. Where do we do it? Well, thank heavens for COVID, the silver lining, we are now a program without borders. We used to actually have 17 locations in 17 different senior centers and libraries. But now with COVID, we had to switch over to virtual modality. And so it's open to anyone who's living anywhere in the state. And as I mentioned, it is free. Next slide, please. Our goal is to equip you, empower you, enrich you so that you will be successful in your job search. So we run a very robust program. We have interactive workshops throughout the month on very specific topics that are directly related to your job search. Self-assessment, figuring out new career paths, developing a resume as a marketing tool, and on and on. So we do that, and we also have a special event series, which we run twice a month with guest speakers and panel events. And through participation in all of this, and we have over 1,000 people on our master list, job seekers are going to develop new skills and strategies, and most importantly, develop new connections for networking. We empower you. A lot of times, as Laura said, when you lose your job, particularly when you're 50-something, 60-something, or 70-something, it really can impact your self-esteem. You can really start to question your own self-worth, like, who's going to hire me now? And we try to build that confidence back. We do it through the group dynamic. There is power in the group, and there is collective wisdom in the group. So there's a lot to learn by interacting with other job seekers. The other thing that we do is we hit ageism head on. Ageism is real. It exists in all phases of the job search process. So we teach you, we provide you with strategies and teach you how to overcome ageism on your resume, on your LinkedIn profile, in an interview setting. And we look to enrich people who are participating in our program. All of the group leaders that do the presentations, run the workshops, are all certified career coaches and professional HR folks. And we have very strong collaborative relationships with age-friendly employers. So our goal is to be a conduit, train you, educate the age-friendly employers, and bring you all together. Next slide, please. So I want you to know you are the fastest growing cohort in the workforce. If you look at this slide, and this was done as of October of 2020, all of these different, beginning with 50 to 54, all the way up to 75 and older, and this sort of coincides with what Cindy was talking about. You are a force to be reckoned with, and there are jobs and people are getting hired. So there is hope. Next slide, please. So I ask you, if you are, feeling like you're lost in your job search, you're stuck, you don't know what to do next, you want to do something, but you're not sure what, come and join us, because we want to travel this journey with you. And always remember that the journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. Next slide. So here's my contact information. I'm all over the place. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter. So I welcome you to contact me if you're interested in becoming part of the Job Seekers Networking Group program, and look forward to seeing you. And I would just, one more thing, tomorrow we have a panel event on volunteerism as a pathway to purpose and employment. And I would invite you to come and sit in on that, because you might find it very, very helpful. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you, Susan. And I just want to remind everyone that we are recording this. I'm going to send out the recording and I'm going to send out the slide deck. So all of this contact information will be on the slides that you get. It'll be a PDF that you can open on your computer. So you don't need to take notes right now if you don't want to. And also just to remind you, if you want to put a question in the chat box, you can enter it at any time. All right, our last panelist. Save the best for last. We have Deborah Bent. She is a vocational rehabilitation, let's see, sorry, I'm not looking at my notes. Vocational rehabilitation counselor for the Cape and Island area office for the Mass Rehab Commission. Welcome, Deborah.
Hi, thanks, Holly. I'm glad to be here. I don't know that you saved the best to last. All these presenters have been fabulous with great information. And I look forward to working with everyone. So I am a vocational counselor for Mass Rehab. If you're not familiar with the Mass Rehab Commission, we work with people with disabilities, adults. My office specifically, the VR office, I work with adults over the age of 18, and I say all the way up to infinity, because we're not specific towards the 50+ generation, but I have several clients that I work with that are in their 50s, 60s, 70s. I've had people in their 80s, and even I had a woman in her 90s, and she was working and had lost her job and wanted to get another job. So she came to us. What we do is we help people become employed, but we also help people stay employed. So because we work with people with disabilities, sometimes people become disabled while they are working, and they're no longer able to be as productive or as efficient in their current job. If you're a good example for someone who's getting older, maybe, is you start to experience hearing loss, and that's affecting your ability to do your job. So you could come to us and apply for services, and we would help you find the resources that you need in order to get hearing aids or whatever it is you need to be able to maintain employment. But we also help people get employment. That's our end goal, is to see that you're employed, and that you're employed in a situation where you're satisfied with the work that you're doing, and it's meaningful work for you. And the disabilities we're talking about, there were too many to list here, so I just put a few. One category is like a cognitive disability. So that might be a learning disability, or ADHD, autism, any executive functioning problems, including organizational skills, memory, developmental delay, and the list would go on. Also mental health disabilities. So that could be depressive and mood disorders, psychotic disorders, anxiety disorders. We work with everyone, and we help them find employment. Physical disabilities, and this is another one that is probably more geared to people as we get older, and I'm one of those 50+ers, 55+ers. You know, you start to develop maybe some more physical disability, so that you're no longer able to do the job that you were trained to do or that you had done your whole life. It can include hearing loss, vision loss, communication impairments, CP, MS, Parkinson's, respiratory issues, mobility, immune deficiencies, diabetes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I did put in the bottom of this slide here, the disability needs to be an impediment to obtaining or maintaining employment. So a lot of people have diabetes and they work, it's not an impediment to their employment. So that's how it becomes, in our eyes, a disability or a limitation. I like to call it a limitation, but it is under the Disabilities Act. We are funded. So we work with people with disabilities. Next slide. Okay, so what do? We provide vocational guidance and counseling that can include doing evaluations and assessments to determine what your current abilities, strengths, and interests are. We will assist you in determining what your needs are in order to be successful at work. So for instance, you may, like I brought up the situation earlier, you may be having a problem with hearing. You need hearing aids in order to be successful with work. We'll help provide you with that. We'll do the assessment and we'll help provide you with the accommodations that you need at work. We can also speak to employers about reasonable accommodations for you. We worked to connect and provide you with all the resources. Some are offered directly from MRC, and sometimes we partner with other community agencies and providers. On the island, there is island employment. We hire them to help specifically work with people on the island. I have been out to the island. I was going out there a couple times a month to help the clients that I work with. I've also done some job development out there in the past, going and talking to employers to look for positions specific to what you're looking for. So we also provide access to resources such as assistive devices and technology. And those are huge now. It's amazing the assistive devices that are available to people. We provide training and education, including on-the-job training and skills training. But we also, if you're eligible for our paid services, we can help send you to a certificate program or a college program. And we also help with computer skills, which I think is huge for the over 55 plus, to develop the computer skills. As Susan had spoke to, the world is changing. It's becoming more of a remote workplace. So having computer skills is an asset if you are either doing a remote job or even a hybrid job where some of it's at home and some of it's at work. And I did put that some MRC services are based on financial need. So we take a look at that as well. Next slide. Employment is the end goal. So we have job placement services. We help with resume development, interview skills, networking. We have Mass Rehab sponsored job fairs and hiring events. We will do ourselves the job development, like I was just speaking to. If you tell me you want to work in a coffee shop, I'm going to go out to coffee shops and see if I can help you get in there. We're connected to a number, like probably up to 100 or more employers statewide, and can work on developing these jobs for you. And I mentioned earlier, we do referrals to island employment through Martha's Vineyard Community Services. Okay, next slide. Okay, how do you apply? So we have the main line, which is in Hyannis, and there's a counselor covering that line every weekday. And you can just call and ask to put in a referral. They'll also answer any questions that you have about our programs if you have any questions. Another way to do this is online. I would suggest you don't do the online applications right now because this is new and it isn't fully staffed yet. So it's not working as seamlessly as we would like it to. But the last way that you can, and I would encourage you strongly, is to contact me directly. I am the one who works with people on Martha's Vineyard to help them get jobs. And I put here my cell phone number, which is the number I'm using while I'm working remotely. Please feel free to call me. Don't hesitate. However, don't call me tomorrow or the next day because I have those days off. I'll be back Monday and I hope I hear from everybody. So feel free to give me a call, and thanks for your time.
Thank you, Deborah. I'm going to stop sharing the screen. Again, we're going to share these slides with all the participants. So you'll be getting these as notes so that you'll have everyone's contact information. So fantastic. Our 4 panelists have provided a lot of resources and information, and it's time to open it up to questions and comments from our audience. So if anyone would like to post a question. You're welcome to post it in chat. There's one here. How can island employers best find mature adult staff? How can island employers best find mature adult staff? Susan, you have any thoughts on that?
So the question is, how do we bring the employers together with the job seekers? Is that the question, Connie?
Yes,
Speak up.
yes,
There
it
you go.
is. Or I don't know, there's such a small community. I'm wondering whether or not there is, what would be the best mechanism to connect employers who are looking for mature adults to be on their team?
Okay, so there's a couple of suggestions that I can make. And again, the 50 plus, I would encourage everyone to go to the 50 plus job seekers website, which I did put in the chat box. And at the end, don't forget to save the chat so that you have any contact information that's on there. I put my contact information in the chat box. There are two things that are going on. One is that AARP has a pledge program called the Age Friendly Pledge Program. And just even within the state of Massachusetts, there are close to 100 companies that have taken the age-friendly pledge. So one of the things I would suggest that you do is, it can go both ways. You have to be a proactive job seeker. So you want to try to identify companies that are age-friendly. There are a lot of companies now, because things are remote, and this is another silver lining of COVID, that there are a number of people that live on the outer islands and the Cape, the outer Cape and the islands, excuse me, it's been a long day, that are able to secure positions off island, on the mainland, as you folks call it, because they can operate remote. And there are many, many companies that are allowing people to operate remote. In fact, we have people in our program that have landed jobs with out-of-state employers. So that's a great thing. The other thing is there is another program which also the Age Friendly Foundation certifies employers who are age friendly. So, I would suggest as a job seeker that if you identify a particular field that you're interested in, and then I can identify companies in that field, check out those two websites and see if the company you're interested in is age friendly. The flip side is the 50 plus job seekers program. One of the things that I'm trying very hard to do this year is to engage those age friendly employers. There are panel events that we've already run where we have invited age-friendly employers. The last one that we did, we had over 400 job seekers, 450 to be exact, 50 plus job seekers that attended this forum. We had 4 age-friendly employers. So again, if you become a member, you do have to register for the 50 plus program. Once you register, you'll get on our master list, and you'll start receiving notifications. And we have a number of those events coming up again in the coming months, where we're inviting age-friendly employers to come and meet our 50 plus job seekers. So that's just a few thoughts.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I'm curious from the point of it as an employer. So
yeah, I was going to speak to that a little bit, Connie, is that if there are employers out there in the participants here in Zoom world, then you could reach out to myself, to Laura, to Susan. And if you're an employer, we have employees. We have these mature employees that are looking for work. So reach out to us by all means. Another great thing that I saw they did in Mashpee was employers that were looking for a workforce and recognize the value of a mature workforce, because we are the ones that will show up. We are the ones that are going to be a little more responsible. We're used to that type of work ethic as opposed to maybe some of the younger people. And I don't want to put younger people down, but they aren't as used to that kind of a work ethic. And they also are used to more of like gig jobs. They hop from job to job to job. And your mature workers are more likely to stick with you and be loyal. So if you're specifically looking for that, I would encourage you to get together with other employers and maybe have a mature workers job fair. They've done that here in Mashpee. I live in Falmouth, and it was very successful. And they drew a lot of mature workers just because these employers were looking for those things that a mature worker can offer. So I hope that answers your question.
So Connie, I guess I didn't understand. Are you an employer? I thought you were a job seeker, so I'm sorry if I didn't
No,
answer
that's
the
right. I'm an
question
employer.
correctly.
That's okay.
You're an employer. Okay, so
Yeah.
the other thing that you might want to do is get in touch with Mass Hire, because Mass Hire runs a number of job fairs, and that would be another way to gain access. But the other thing is, you know, just to even participate, we have a LinkedIn group for the 50+ job seekers with close to 1,000 people in that group. LinkedIn is a very powerful tool for employers as well. As you know, I used to have a retained search firm, and you're more than welcome. Let's get connected on LinkedIn. I'll invite you to join the 50+ job seekers LinkedIn group, and you will have total access to all of the members in the group that are right there. So that's another
Perfect.
thing that you
Oh, thank you. That's great.
I saw in the chat that someone said, is it okay to like invite mature workers to apply? And I would say absolutely. You know, you can just put in your job description that mature workers are encouraged to apply.
Okay.
Well, so and can I just jump in on that, Debbie, as well? And that is, you know, I mentioned the AARP pledge. One of the ways that you can attract older workers is to take the pledge. And then you can put in your advertising that you had, you know, they actually give you a little emblem that you can put in all of your Marcom materials. And that would be a way to do that. And the other thing is, when we're working with the job seekers, we advise them to look at the job descriptions and see if there is language in there that suggests that the company is age friendly. So I would definitely encourage you to use that phrase, we are an age friendly employer, when you're posting jobs.
Well, I want to just add a few things that I've observed with those businesses, mostly the small businesses we have on the Cape, who are very successful at attracting and retaining older workers. First of all, and you know, as much as we have all gotten online this past year, those the employers who are really successful at this often remove the barriers to applying for a job. So if they are big enough to have an HR director, that HR director is available if you were to come knock on the door because you saw a help wanted sign, or the manager, the hiring manager, so that it doesn't have to go through an online application. If you have the flexibility to do that, it will work. Or if you do have to go through an online system, try to have some way to support people who want to fill out that application, maybe by having them use a computer on site so you can kind of walk them through any areas that are glitchy with your online application. Another thing that helps is to read information about what older workers want most in their workplace. A lot of times it isn't a lot of money. A lot of times it is, of course, fair wages, but flexible hours mean a lot because a lot of older workers have family responsibilities. Having a respectful intergenerational workplace is often very much valued by older workers. And flexible benefits so that you don't need to take benefits that are of no use to you, but those benefits that you can use, you can get. So those are some of the things that have worked for companies here.
And Connie, I'll just add to that. This is Cindy. Hello, Connie.
Hi.
Is two things. One is at the session next week, Mass Hire will be represented. So it might be worthwhile to listen in to in terms of the career fair conversation. The other is when I had shown the slides before, cultural and organizational fit was the second most important reason why people seek employment. And so I think amping up the sense of inclusiveness and a cultural fit for a mature employee, I think it will kind of resonate with some of the motivations for working.
Great, thanks.
So there is a question in the chat that relates to this and benefits. Laura Lucina says, most part-time jobs do not include health insurance. Will there be programs to help get health for seniors? So how do we address seniors who need to work part-time for whatever reason, or who can only find a part-time or perhaps a seasonal job that does not come with benefits, especially health insurance?
So you're talking about people who are under 65, seniors that are under 65. And that's, you know, where the flexible hours can be really important, because for different tiers of health insurance, whether you're going in through the connector or you're on Mass Health, you might have a benefit threshold. Similarly, if you are receiving Social Security disability, or if you took early retirement. So I can't address the question of how you would get your health insurance, but I think that employers can be sensitive to any kinds of earning caps or benefit loss that employees might face if they went, if like you have a job, it's part-time, and then all of a sudden your boss wants you to work overtime and you want to be a good team player. But if you do it, you will lose your health insurance. So I think you need employers to be sensitive to some of the complex benefit packages many people experience.
I also, I know that you had mentioned that the Mass Health Connector is a way of getting, anyone can apply for them on the Mass Health Connector for health insurance. And, but I know it's difficult as you're getting older to kind of navigate everything. My mother, when she was like, she worked until she was over 70 years old, but part of the time that she worked just prior to retirement, fully retiring, was just for the health insurance, only to get the health insurance. She was hardly making any money, but her employer allowed her to go into the group plan. So you could speak to an employer about the ability to go into a group plan, if that's what your major interest is in working, is making a little bit of money, but making sure you have the health insurance you need to cover all those expensive bills and everything. And then when she was eligible for the Medicare, she, you know, and then of course there's so much when you're getting older and having to navigate all those things about what supplemental plans do you need and everything. And I'm not sure if that's something Elder Services is able to help people with. I am certainly not an expert on it, but I do believe that some people, their whole motivation for working is to continue to get some sort of health insurance. So certainly talk to the employer about that and say, this is what I want. You know, this is the most important thing to me in order to work. And if they want you as an employee, they may consider getting you into their group plan, even though you're working part-time.
Great. Let's move on to the concept of types of work, especially the idea of remote work. Since COVID, so many things have gone remote. Programming, training, interviewing, it's all been remote for the past year and most likely will continue that way for some time. So one of the questions in the chat is, are there a significant number of remote jobs available? And another question we've received is, what if I don't have internet or a wireless device? Am I at a disadvantage?
Well, I can take part of that. The second part of the question, I just attended actually an info session this past week there's a brand new program, and it's run through Mass Hire, and it's called the MIC program, and it's the Massachusetts Internet Connection Program. And without going into a lot of detail, if anyone is interested, email me and I can send you the whole slide deck which describes it. But if you do not have internet connection, or you have very poor connectivity, or you don't have a device, like you don't have a Chromebook or a laptop, there are partners, Comcast, and a few others that are offering this through June to anyone for free. And it's done through Mass Hire. So all you have to do is call up Mass Hire and tell them that you need internet or you need a Chromebook, and you will get one. And it's one of the best kept secrets, unfortunately, like a lot of other things. And I will also say that the vast majority of companies have gone remote. So there are many, there's probably more jobs that are remote right now than on site. And I, based on everything I've read, even now, there was a big article in the Wall Street Journal this morning that even now, as people are getting vaccinated and getting more comfortable returning to the workplace, that companies are going to probably be hybrid. So there will always be opportunities for remote. So I just mentioned that.
I'd also like to mention that Mass Rehab has recently provided a lot of computers and printers and things like that that people need in order to work remotely, and to go to school, because that's another service that we offer. And if we're offering this service, but people don't have the computers because everything went online, then we have been able to offer that. As long as we still have funding available, everything is based on funding, we'll continue to do that. We also have a department, the Assistive Technology department. So some people don't even know how to use some of the technology that is available. And if someone needs to set up a home office, maybe you're in a wheelchair and you need help setting up a home office. These are all different services that Mass Rehab can offer depending on your eligibility.
Great.
Now is a really great time to try to access technology. So if this has been a barrier to you, now is the time to ask questions, because as Susan was explaining, and I think Deborah too, this may not go on forever, this ability of agencies to get a hold of technology and help you overcome those barriers.
So in the few minutes that we have left, we have a couple of other questions about ageism and overcoming the stereotypes of being an older adult. How would you suggest people get the word out that they're looking for employment, especially as an older or mature worker? What is the best way to share their level of competence with technology, speaking of remote work? And what are some of the major concerns that employers have about older adults, and how do we address these as we explore opportunities?
And we have, what, 3 minutes to answer that question? Do we have a half an hour? That was a packed question. So I don't even know where to begin. There's a number of different components to that. What was the last part of the question?
What are the major concerns that employers have about older adults, and how do we address these as we explore opportunities?
Well, again, that's one of the things we do in the 50+ program. I mean, we do hit this head on, but employers, there are a lot of stereotypes. I'm on a statewide task force studying this issue with funding from the governor's office, looking at ageism as a barrier for the older worker. And we are running a number of forums for that. So we hear from the job seekers themselves. But employers are worried about things like, being technology ready, being willing to learn new skills, fitting into companies which are run predominantly by millennials now. So there's the fit, energy level, all of those things. And there are ways to overcome it. It's sort of blocking and tackling each piece of it. And a lot of it has to do with practice, learning how to present yourself. One of the things I would say, and again, I would invite anyone who is a job seeker here to come, volunteerism is a very vital pathway to employment. And it's a way to overcome the stereotypes. So you sort of like, it's the puppy dog clothes where, you let the employer see what you're capable of doing, and just by your work ethic, your reliability, your ability to communicate, your confidence, the wisdom that you can bring from all of your experience. I mean, all of those things can come through in a volunteer capacity. And so I would encourage you, if you are actively looking, while you are, volunteer, ideally within an organization that is related in some way to what you ultimately want to do, because it's the greatest way to let an employer sort of try you on for size. And there are some volunteer opportunities which do have stipends, and two of the guest speakers tomorrow represent those. So I would invite anyone who's interested to come.
I think Cindy needs to do another survey on the employers. And answer that.
All right. Duly
That is the
noted.
other side of it.
Well, Nancy from the Chamber of Commerce is speaking next week, and she may be able to give a perspective representing the employers of the island. I just want to make one comment on volunteering is alive and well with our older adults on the island. Almost slightly more than 50% of our older adults are involved in volunteering on the island. It's amazing, and it's part of what keeps the backbone and the life force of our island. And if you actually calculate out what that represents in terms of full-time equivalents, it's over 500 full-time employees on the island, which are volunteers. So it's a wonderful way. It's part of our culture, Susan, in terms of what people are comfortable doing and aligning to the area of employment of interest is a great way to think about where you put your volunteer energy.
I just would love to appreciate all of you participants who showed up today. It is so encouraging to see so many people interested who are over the age of 50 and continuing to work and finding out ways to do that. So I really appreciate all of you for showing up tonight. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. If we have any other questions, speak out now. But I also want to thank everyone for participating, and to remind you that next Wednesday, we have our follow-up to this with 4 new panelists and a different set of questions and topics for employment for older adults. The slide deck and recording will be made available to all of you, so check your email in the next day for that. And thank you so much for participating. And I want to send out a thank you to Cindy Trish for spearheading this and getting it going. It's a great event. Hope it was helpful for everyone. And we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Don't forget to save the chat box.